On South Sport tonight, how the Saints, complete with Kevin Keegan, got the new league season off to a dramatic winning start. And we've got the Maestro himself, Laurie McMenemy. Oh, what a pillock.
Very much. Who's a pillock, you or me?
Keep that.
I'm not a bloody pillock.
Keep that for Christmas. That's a Christmas day.
Christmas Day.
I think we need a bit of music for this. So if the Maestro would start.
Okay.
Going to start on the right leg.
I shouldn't. Just do the arms by themselves.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's forward, back, forward, back, forward, back.
I'm concentrating.
That's it.
Right.
Got it?
Now we do the legs.
Now do the legs. Forward, back. That's it. Now bring in the arms at the same time. Come on. Legs, arms, legs. Go on, try again. Arms, legs, legs. You can't.
Get it. All right. I would like to say what a pleasure it's been working with you. I'd like to, but unfortunately I can't. Sports headlines. David.
Hello there. I'll be back with the Friday Sports Show in just over an hour from now to bring you a worm's eye view on a new sport. That's hovercraft racing, and you can see more of it on the Friday Sports Show at 6:30 tonight. Good evening to you. Tonight, the naughty goings-on at the Village Conservative Club and why the barmaid dropped her knickers.
Also tonight, Arthur Scargill says in Bournemouth...
Oh, sorry, she didn't drop them. Sorry. All that, including sport, a new type of clean-up campaign in Gosport, and the rain forecast from Trevor Baker. All that, and Fern Britton taking her clothes off in Coast to Coast tonight at 6.
Well, in Coast to Coast tonight, swans who made their home at a Southampton boatyard and are now becoming a family, and as Europe's largest aquarium gets ready to open at Southsea. I'm sorry.
That's my bit you've just been reading straight through. Sod it, I've only got a bloody bit. Straight on through it, mate. Lifting the lid off life at the Crossroads Motel. It's Benny, alias actor Paul Henry. By God. We could probably do better than that, you know. When I said Benny, up came Chrissy Pollard. Good evening. On Coast to Coast tonight at 6, we're in the dark. Good evening. On Coast to Coast tonight, a cloud over the tobacco industry. British American Tobacco announced huge redundancies in the south.
The council house that's being renovated at a cost of £64,000.
And in Coastline, the roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd, or vice versa. As a circus with a difference comes to town, what a prat I am.
He's an ITV legend. He's a TV legend. He's one of the very, very few pros in the business who made such a strong connection with his audience. Will you please welcome the legend that is Fred Dinenage.
They were really, really happy. I was so lucky because for me, it all started by complete accident. I was working on the Brighton Evening Argus. I was a little reporter. I think I was 21. And we had a girl who used to write a column for the Argus called Anne Nightingale, who later became Annie Nightingale, DJ on Radio 1. Lovely lady, such a good friend of mine. And one day she came in the office and she said, oh, she was doing a lot of TV at the time, Southern TV and rediffusion. And she came in the office and she said, I've just been at Southern TV and I've been talking to a producer there, a director there called Angus Wright. And he's looking for a young guy to be on a kids' magazine show. And she said, I've given him your name. She said, you should give him a ring. I'd never thought about TV. See, TV wasn't like it is now. It was black and white. There was BBC, there was Southern, ITV, and a little bit of BBC too, and that was it. So I rang him up, and he said, yes, I've got 2 girls for this kids magazine show, like a forerunner of Blue Peter. I'm looking for a bloke, and it starts in a few weeks' time. So come across next Tuesday, and we'll do an audition. So the following Tuesday morning, I didn't have a car. I'd been on the night before. I'd missed the train, and I never went. I mean, how unprofessional is that? You know, but I was happy doing what I was doing. The following Sunday morning, there was a knock on my front door. I opened it, and there was this young man there, and he said, "Hello, are you Fred Dinenage?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I'm Angus Wright." He said, "I'm on the way to Lewis to make a farming film, and I just thought I'd pop in and see the rude who not only didn't turn up, but never even bothered to ring me to say he wasn't going to turn up." And I felt terrible. And we had a cup of coffee, and we got on really well. And he said, "Come next Tuesday, but if you don't turn up, that's it. Forget about it." Following Tuesday, I caught the train to Southampton. I walked from Southampton station to Northam, to the, remember the studios at Northam there? I was an hour early. How unprofessional is this? I went into the Prince of Wales pub across the road and had a pint of bitter. I mean, how unprofessional is that? I went in, I met Angus Wright, and I can't remember what I did in the audition, but I must have been breathing hops all over me. I think, to be honest with you, the only reason I got the job was he hadn't got anybody else, and the bloody show was starting in a few weeks' time. And he gave me the job, and I think it was only a 7-week contract. And then I think it went on for about 18 months.
Were you good at it from the get-go? Did you think, this is TV, it's new, but I can do it, and I feel very comfortable with this?
No, not really. I was never a natural. Do you know what I mean? I remember one of the very first interviews I ever did was with the Rolling Stones, who were just becoming prominent then. And they shambled into the studio. For some reason, Angus had got us all on cushions on the floor. And the Rolling Stones, as I'm doing the introduction to them, clearly had no interest in me whatsoever. They were sort of picking their feet, their noses, scratching their ears, totally ignoring me. And I thought, this is the end of my career. And at the end of it all, as they left the studio, I walked out with Brian Jones, who was the founder of the Rolling Stones, I think, who was the one I really liked. And we walked back to his car, which was a Humber Super Snipe. And he put his arm round me and he said, "I'm ever so sorry about that, mate." He said, "But that's the way we've been told to behave." Because he said the Beatles are the nice guys and we've been told to be really obnoxious. So he said, "I'm sorry if we up your career."
Did you, Fred, so you're at Northam Studios, ITV's pretty new,
yeah.
It's very exciting, and you are meeting and working with these people. You did work with the Beatles on Salisbury Plain when they were filming the movie Help.
Yes.
How close did you spend any time with them? What are your memories of hanging out with the Beatles?
I'll tell you something funny. This sounds ridiculous. I was in a pub. I don't know what I was...
Not again.
I think it was in Lewis. And Ringo Starr was in this pub. I think they were performing locally. Ringo Starr actually came up to me and said, "Could I have your autograph?" I said, "What?" He said, "My mum really, he said, my mum loves Hal." He said, "Could you do?" So I did an autograph for Ringo Starr's mum. If I'd had anything about me at all, I'd have got his autograph 50 times, because it's worth a lot more than mine, that's for sure. Isn't it?
Have you ever looked up on eBay how much Fred Dinenage autograph goes for?
Yes, this was a very sobering experience. Do you know what? I go for less than Trevor Baker. It's true. I think I'm about 5p. It's shocking, isn't it? Even my Cray books, you can get them for £1. It's sad, isn't it, eh?
So there you are, you're at Southern TV, it's
yes.
the 1960s, and big stars are coming to Southern because there's not that much TV in Britain.
No.
So they would think nothing of driving from London or north of the country to guest on Southern TV. Tony Blackburn had his own show called Time for Blackburn, and he was massive on Radio 1 at the time, doing the breakfast show. But people like Diana Dawes would be in the corridors. Who do you remember hanging around with at those studios?
Oh, we had so many big stars come in. Do you remember? It was a normal, everyday thing. Huge stars. And you'd get to interview them, you know, the likes of Harry Seacombe, I remember vividly. He was so wonderful. And I was so lucky because I went from 3 Go Round to Day by Day and met Jack Hargreaves. And Jack Hargreaves said to me, I'll never forget this, it's bizarre how it worked. I think it was the most unusual audition anybody's ever done. Jack Hargreaves said, I've been watching. I'll tell you what it was. On 3 Go Round, we did a thing on April Fool's Day on Beetle wigs. At the time, everybody was wearing Beetle wigs. And we did this thing at a guy called John Miller's house near Middleton-on-Sea, near Bognor Regis. And we pretended he was a little scientific sort of bloke in a white coat. And we claimed on April Fool's Day that beetle wigs were made from the hairs on beetles' legs. And we had hundreds of little rubber beetles that looked like the real thing. And a machine which appeared to shave off the hairs on their legs. And we said, that's how beetle wigs are made. We got reported to the RSPCA over that. But it was funny, and John Miller was brilliant in it. And I think Jack Hargreaves had seen that, and he said to me, he came up to me in the corridor at Southern TV in the old Plaza Cinema, and he said, have you ever been abroad? And I said, because we didn't in those days. I said, well, I went to Paris once with the school for a week, and that's it. He said, look, with my wife, I'm taking a boat down the Canal de Midi in France. Stan Breo, remember Stan Breo? My cameraman is going to come with me. He's got his dormobile. We need somebody to drive he's going to be on the boat all day. We need someone to drive the dormobile from point A to point B to meet up with us every day. Would you like to do it? He said, I'll pay you, and it'd be a nice holiday. And I said, yes. No sat-nav in those days. I'd never driven abroad before in my life, but somehow I managed to get this bloody dormobile from point A to point B every day. I'd meet up with Jack and his wife and Stan Breo. Jack could speak French. We'd go to little local cafes and things. We'd have nice meals and some wine, and we got on really, really well. It was a lovely, lovely week. Sleeping with Stan Breo in this dormobile wasn't ideal. It was very tiny. There was no washing facilities at all. And Stan, lovely bloke, brilliant cameraman, but not the most fragrant person in the world. So I had a week with him there. I remember one day Jack said, I'd met up with him alongside this canal, and he said to me, do you fancy a bath? And I said, Christ, I could do with one. He said, come, get your towel and come with me. So we walked along the towpath, and there were some washer ladies there washing the clothes on the stones. And he said to them in French, he said, look, me and my friend are going to jump in the canal and have a wash. I didn't realise that's what we were going to do. He said, so can you just turn your backs or go away? And they just laughed at him until he dropped his trousers. Then they all buggered off.
I thought you were going to say, and then they laughed even more.
I'll do that next time. Yeah. And then we got back, and he eventually came up to me and he said, look, I've got this idea for a programme called How. It was going to be an adult programme to start with, and he said, we're going to make a late night show about 10:30 at night, a dummy programme really, which is going to be transmitted. He said, I've got John Miller doing the scientific stuff, Bunty James, remember dear Bunty, who's still alive, thank God. She'll be doing the sort of feminine stuff, for want of a better word. And he said, I thought you could, and he'd be doing all the sort of outdoor stuff because he was brilliant at it. And he said, and you can do the rest. So I said, fine. So we did this dummy program. I was terrible. I was knocking things, you know what I'm like. I was knocking things over. Something caught fire. It was an absolute disaster, but the crew all loved it. They laughed. And then a few weeks later, Jack came back and said, we've sold How. How is going to go on the network for a few weeks to see how it goes down as a children's program. And he said, I'd like you to be in it. And I said, Jack, fantastic. Thank you very much. I said, and Jack, I promise you, I'm really going to research it. I'm going to do all my hard work. I'm going to be absolutely word perfect on this programme. I will not let you down. He said, Fred, you don't understand. You were hired to be the Pratt. and basically, as you all know, because you've all worked with me, I've been a Pratt ever since.
Fred, you mentioned Jack. This isn't really like This Is Your Life, but we do have one clip from someone who wanted to be here today and couldn't be. This is a clip wishing you all the best from Jack's stepson.
Out of Town, Part 1, VTR number 5270, take 1.
Lovely theme as well, Fred.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
This has been around practically all my life. The older ones among us will recognise what it is immediately. A piece of fretwork. I tell you what, I'll put something behind it so you can see it better.
I was in the studio on a number of occasions because Jack lost his licence. He was caught speeding outside Reading. And he said to the police officer, apparently, we said, why are you speeding? He said, my bitch is whelping. And they didn't think, he thought he was teasing them, right? And that didn't go down well. He might have talked his way out of it. So he lost his license for 6 months. I think there'd been some other episodes. He was quite a fast driver. And I drove him to Southern Television and used to sit in with George Egan in the studio watching these broadcasts going out.
This is interesting. That's not much of a sporting trophy, you might say. A pair of roe deer antlers, not even very grand ones, just a sort of 1 year, 2 year old, 2 to 3 year old buck, perhaps. But then, it's not a shooting trophy. I didn't keep that because I shot it. In fact, I wouldn't like to have a trophy of something ever shot like this. This particular roebuck died in battle.
He read Marshall McLuhan and the whole notion of hot and cold media and all the rest. Suddenly grasped that he wasn't talking to millions of people, even though the viewing figure's absolutely vital for your living and everything else, but that you're talking to people through a small screen in their room. Which, of course, immediately reminds me of the lady who came up to him once and said, oh, I loved seeing you, Mr. Hargreaves, on the telly the other day. Did you like my curtains? And he often had that experience of us realising that a lot of people didn't realise it was a one-way communication, that it was two-way. But I think his whole way of chatting was extremely carefully prepared. He said at one point, someone said, why are you so natural? And he said, well, I'm very natural because I spent ages working at it. You know, I didn't sleep for 25 years on this programme. On Thursday night, I didn't sleep a wink because he was thinking about what he was going to do Friday night.
Hello.
I would love to see a shot that would probably be made now and gone viral, you know, of Jack, you know, who knew that smoking was no longer quite acceptable, would appear on screen and then put out his pipe and then continue broadcasting. But there was an occasion, apparently, and maybe more than one, where he put his pipe in his pocket and it hadn't actually gone out.
It did. It did.
And apparently the floor manager had to crawl under the cameras and pour a jug of water into his pocket from which he could see the smoke arising. The whole idea about this programme was lots of stinks and bells and bangs and explosions and things that went wrong. You know, what he loved live television.
Oh! So, just how does the Dead Sea work? Well, we've seen the eggs in the pint mugs and the salt, and I reckon if you get a bath full of salty water, which is what we've got here, I should be able to float in it as if I was on the Dead Sea. Let's find out. Inky, away we go. Nice and steady. Should float without any problem at all. This is the Dead Sea. Floating beautifully.
So, Fred, when you watch that and you see Jack on How and also on Out of Town, he made it look so easy. Was it because it just came naturally to him, or do you think there's no point in putting too much effort into this? I'm just being myself.
I love Jack. Did you all love Jack? Yeah, he was just amazing. So no script, no autocue. There was no autocue in those days. No
and he could sign off shows, a bit like Lou Grade at ATV.
Yes.
He could sign off shows and budget for shows and all of that, because he was quite high up in the pecking order.
He was deputy controller of programmes, wasn't he, for a time? He was a very powerful man, Jack. Yes, he was. And Simon's absolutely right. He had that pipe, which he smoked on how and everything, because he said it's I don't have it because I enjoy it. It's a prop, and people expect me to have it. And he would light up and puff away, think it had gone out, stick it in his pocket, get another one out, light it up, and suddenly you'd see smoke coming up, and you'd see one Cyril. Remember little Cyril, the scene hand, or Cyril's brother, crawling along the floor with a jug of water. When the camera was off Jack, he'd pull Jack's pocket open and pour the water in. Jack never had any jacket where all the pockets matched, because they'd all burnt through. But I love the story of the lady with the curtains. Did you like my curtains?
Yeah.
Because I should have bought it. I've got a picture of it. I'd never thought. A bloke stopped me in Fareham a few weeks ago, and this is absolutely true, and I've got it in the car. I've got the picture of it, so I can swear it's true. And he said to me, "Can I show you something?" I said, "What do you want to show me?" He said, "Can I show you my leg?" And I said, "Why do you want to show me your leg?" He said, "Because I've got something on it." I said, "Okay, show me your leg." So he pulled his trouser leg up, and I've got it in the car. And on his calf, he'd got a tattoo of my face. So luckily it was an old picture. I said, "Why have you got that?" He said, "Because I like you." I should have bought it with me. I said, "Are you married?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "How does your wife feel about going to bed with that every night?" He said, "She hates it. She can't stand you."
Tell me a little bit about, so at Southern TV, you're not as big as Thames or London Weekend or ATV.
I've just seen my wife here. Good. Did you know that?
No, I asked you, texted you this morning, said, "Is Mrs. D coming? Does she want lunch?"
Well, and I asked her, and she said, "No, I can't come." And my daughter's here as well.
They want the real Fred Dinenage, the one they've never had at home.
Do you know, I was looking from in there, and I thought, Christ, that looks like my Bev. I thought that's a spitting image of her.
Bev.
Hey, Bev.
Bev, did you know that he had smacked Fern Britton on the bum? He smacked me on the bum this afternoon. So, Fred, tell me this, right? So, Thames have got all the money, so's Lou Grade at ATV, London Weekend have got all these fantastic shows. Did you in the South feel a bit like a poor relation to those other channels?
No, I think Southern had such a fantastic identity, didn't it? We made such good programmes, especially children's programmes. I remember the Daily Mirror did a thing once saying the best children's programmes in Britain, and they come from Southampton, which was a great accolade, I think. I mean, Southern TV, and they did great dramas as well, didn't they? Day by Day, which was a phenomenally successful programme. And remember Barry Westwood? What a presenter he was, wasn't he? Trevor Baker, he was amazing, Trevor Baker. Do you remember the cube he had, Trevor? None of that computer graphics in those days. He had that cube and all the sort of words on it and the temperatures on it.
Fuzzy felt.
Yes, well it was sort of magnets with black rubber on the front. And he'd spin it around. So, and one night he said, "Right, let's look at the weather for the next 24 hours. And it said fog and rain. And as he span it round, the F dropped off, and he said, and I'm sorry about the effing fog. And that's true.
People love Trevor. Trevor had his own show. Do you remember that? Was it called the Trevor Baker's All-Weather Show?
Trevor Baker's All-Weather Show. And I'll never forget walking past his studio. This is quite good, this, isn't it? We must do this more often.
Yeah. Get me on one of your cruises you keep going on.
I walked past his studio. A lovely man, Trevor. Such a beautiful man. I mean, the measure of the man is this, that when he retired, he didn't just go into his shell or hide away. He used to push the library trolley around Southampton General Hospital. That's the kind of bloke Trevor Baker was. Absolutely wonderful bloke. A really wonderful man.
Did you realise at the time, we mentioned the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, television being new, did you realise at the time this is a golden era? Or did you think every day is going to be like this for the rest of my life?
I think you've got it in one. I think you think to yourself, this is going to last forever. And of course, it doesn't, you know. And Southern lost their franchise. Do you remember that? It was catastrophic, wasn't it? And then TVS lost it. Every company I've ever worked for has lost its bloody franchise.
We've noticed.
Honestly, on the day it was TVS lost their franchise, right? On the day it's being announced whether they're going to keep it, I was on Steve Wright's programme on Radio 1. Radio 1 then, with Carol Vorderman and Gaz Top, or Gareth Jones as he became, talking about How To, which was just about to start. So that was on the afternoon when this result of the franchise was going to be announced. So the day before, I went to Clive Jones, who was quite important at TVS, and said, look, Clive, it would be ever so embarrassing if we lost the franchise tomorrow, because I'm going on Steve Wright's show in the afternoon at the same time. And he said to me, Fred, Clive Jones said, Fred, stick your house on it. It's an absolute cert. It can't go wrong. You know, stick your house on it. Have a bet. See? So, magic. So I get up to London. First thing Steve Wright says to me is, you f*** this up. He said, you've just lost the bloody franchise. Hey? So we've been through it all. You know, it's amazing. Meridian's still there, to be quite honest. Probably because I've left.
But what about the daily routine of going into the office, flirting with the girls in the office, Bev, drinking coffee, telling dirty jokes, and then getting on, doing half hour's worth of work and going home? Well, do you miss that?
Well, you miss your companions, don't you? How many people in this room are now, as they say, retired? Quite a lot. Did you all miss it? No. Oh, Christ.
I weren't getting paid the same kind of money as you, though, Fred.
But yes, you miss the people, you know, and all the friends I've made here over the years, going back a long, long time. It's very special.
You have a very, very special ingredient. I don't even know whether you know you've got it. It's the same special ingredient that Liberace had.
What?
Well, this is true.
Where's this going?
This is true. Apparently, when Liberace would come to the UK and make programmes for, in the 60s, for, I don't know who it was, but for some ITV region, the crew, the cameramen, he might come in once every 2 years. They would say, Lee would come in and he would remember everybody's name. He would make everybody feel important. He would remember the name of their children. So this big superstar coming in from Vegas would make people feel $1 million. And that is your, I just think that's your secret ingredient. You make everybody feel special, doesn't it?
No, well, that's very nice of you, but I just love people, you see, and I love talking to people and finding out about people and what makes them tick. And I've always been the same. But I'll tell you who was the master of names was Dickie Davies. Remember Dickie Davies? Oh, Dickie is fantastic at remembering people's names. He was just amazing. I suppose because he used to be a purser, didn't he, on the liners. So perhaps it was a part of the job to remember who the passengers were. But Dickie was just, he was great to me, was Dickie, because he would stand in for Eamon Andrews on World of Sport. Do you remember? And he used to do the football results and all that, and the racing results. And then when Eamon stood down and Dickie moved in his place, Dickie got me on World of Sport as well.
He did that. He got you on that.
Oh, he was brilliant to me, Dickie. Absolutely brilliant. And the incredible thing was, just before World of Sport, he had a pub at Romsey. Do you remember, it was Romsey or was it Andover? Thank you. Andover. What was he called? Well done. And he had this pub because Dickie thought his career was coming to a bit of an end at Southern TV and all that. And then World of Sport happened for him. And he got me on that. And I went to the Olympic Games in Moscow. And typical ITV, we didn't have enough people. So, and I was going to, Dickie was introducing it in London, and I was going to introduce it in Moscow, big time difference. So I was getting on about midnight over there. And we all sat down, and John Bromley, the executive producer, said, look, we're a bit short of people here, so Fred, I want you to do some commentary. And I said, well, I'm introducing it. He said, yeah, but you're working late at night, so you can do the commentary in the day. So I said, well, what am I doing commentary? He said, rowing and canoeing. I said, but I don't know anything about it. He said, well, you've got 3 days to find out. So I went to the rowing regatta place, miles outside Moscow. I found the head of the British team, and I said, look, I'm from IT, because BBC, David Coleman and Frank Boff, they were terrific. I said, I'm from ITV. We're a bit short of staff this week, and I'm doing the rowing and canoeing. Can you help me? And he was brilliant. I mean, the good thing about rowing and canoeing is someone's going to win it, someone's going to come second. So it's pretty obvious, isn't it? So I'm in this commentary box. The fellow in the next box is a German. And he said to me, you've got a little phone dial in your box. If you're very clever, you can phone home and they'll never know. Yes. So, and he showed me how to do it. So every day from the rowing regatta in Moscow, I'm dialing, you know, bum, 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 0705, whatever our number was at the time, talking to Bev every day for a month. It's magic. Got back, and about a month later, John Bromley called me into his office. He said, I said, is there a problem? He said, yes. He said, we've got this phone bill from Moscow for £2,000. I still haven't paid it.
When we had coffee in Fareham, and Fred was just spewing out these stories, in 10 minutes, I just wrote these 3 down. It's all I've got on this bit of paper, because I wanted him to share these stories with you. So, the Jack Charlton story.
Oh, Jack Charlton. Yeah, because when I was at Southern, I started to do some freelancing, and I was doing a show at Tyne Tees Television in Newcastle. And they were doing a pilot program, a dummy program, for a show that they thought would go, a chat show type thing that would go out on Friday nights about 10:30 at night. And it was a discussion program, which I didn't do, but in the last 20 minutes, they got a thing called The Big Interview, which I was going to do. So for this dummy program, they got in Jack Charlton. It was on a Sunday afternoon. Big Jack Charlton came in, and his mum was there, and all the family from Newcastle. They were all there watching this. And we did this interview. And I said, Jack, you're coming towards the end of your career now. Have you got any thoughts about it? He said, yes. He said, I've got a little black book. He said, and every bugger that's injured me in my career, before I finish, I'm going to get him. So everybody laughed. And I said, Jack, you'll get banned if that's ever shown, you see. And the interview came to a close. And I said, Jack, this is a dummy program. It's not going out. Tyne Tees, I know what television people are like. I've got a room full of them here. I said, they'll come up to you afterwards and say, can we put that interview out? Because it was so good. I said, say no. Say no. You'll get into trouble. Dear old Jack, they asked him, and Jack said, oh, yes. They put it out. He got banned. He got banned. He banned from playing for England and everything for a couple of games. And I saw him about a month later at Yorkshire TV in Leeds. I'd made headlines. I'd never had publicity like it. And dear old Jack said to me, Fred, I'm so sorry about all the embarrassment I've caused you. It was the best publicity I'd ever had. An amazing, amazing man.
That's a really good story. I loved it when you told me that one the first time. It's just as good the second time round as well. That's good. So you have to put that one in the cruises. And what about Tiswas? Now, this clip is on YouTube. Have any of you seen Fred on Tiswas doing a mock-up of the world of sport? And didn't you get told off for that too?
Chris Tarrant said, "Oh, we'd like to do a sort of dummy opening to the start of Tiswas. Would you do it for us?" I said, "Well, what is it?" And they'd built a World of Sport set. And Tiswas was on before World of Sport on a Saturday morning. So he said, "We want you to come on and say, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tiswas. Welcome to Tiswas. We're taking over from World of Sport today."
And they had the World of Sport music playing.
And the World of Sport music was playing, and all the typewriters behind. And Norman Collier was there, Lenny Henry, they all with their wigs on, the girls who were the typists, etc., etc., etc. And I'm reading this script about World of Sport today, and World of Sport, blah blah blah. And then eventually Tarrant walks in with that lovely lady who was with him. What was her name?
Sally James.
Yes, Sally James walked in with the custard and the phantom flange flinger or whatever he was, smack in my face, you see. And I looked a complete prat. And Billy Wright, who was head of sport at Central TV at the time, or ATV they may have been called, very important man in ITV sport. Billy Wright came up to me afterwards and said, "They won't like that in London, Fred," because they took themselves very seriously on World of Sport. And so John Bromley had me in his office again. First of all, the £2,000 Russian bill. Now bloody Tiswas. It's amazing I carried on that bloody show, really.
What about the programme? I think it was, it may have been Meridian or TVS. I think it was early Meridian. It was called Under Offer.
Yes.
And you were on there with Toyah, and she got really hacked off with you.
Oh, yes. Do you remember Under Offer? It was a show where you had to guess the value of houses. Do you remember that? And Toyah Wilcox was team captain on one side, and she had a guest with her.
You had to guess the value of the houses, and they'd show you a beautiful home.
Yes.
And then when the camera panned out at the end, after you had valued the home, it would be next to a pylon or a motorway.
That's right, yes.
Or something like that.
Yes.
Or there'd be a few of those within it.
Yes. And we did 2 or 3 series of that show, and Toyah was really good at it. And she always wiped the floor with me. It didn't bother me in the slightest, to be quite honest, because I was used to being beaten up. So it didn't worry me. And then suddenly on series 4 or 5, and I don't know why, I must have had good people working alongside it. They changed them every programme. Because suddenly, I think 13 programmes in the series, and suddenly I'm about 10-1 up. And Toyah didn't like it. Very competitive. So the producer said to me, "Look, we've got the last 2 programmes. It would be a very good thing if you were to lose these last 2 programmes, so Toyah's got more of a score." I said, "That's fine." And I'll tell you who it was, who my partner was. It was Leslie Joseph from Birds of a Feather. And of course, no one realised that on the side she's an estate agent as well. So she came in, Leslie did. So she wanted to create a good impression. She came in, and they said, "Oh, Fred, this is Leslie Joseph." I said, "Leslie, look, there's a slight problem here. I'm winning this series quite convincingly, and the producer's not happy, and he'd like us to lose the next 2 programmes." Leslie Joseph looked at me and said, "You can off." So she went out and blitzed it, you see. And of course we won the next 2. And the producer came up to me and he said, "What the bloody hell?" And we never did another series.
So isn't it weird hearing Fred Dinenage swear? It's really weird.
I'll get told off afterwards. No swearing.
You're a very good lad, but you really should have watched your language, because it's all being filmed.
Yeah.
When you think back on it all, what is the overriding memory, apart from the great money that ITV were paying in those days? What do you remember? What's the one thing you think, oh, yeah?
I think my happiest times, I've got to be honest, my happiest times were on How. It was just the most wonderful programme to have worked on, and I feel so lucky that I worked on that. And lucky that there was another follow-up, How 2, it came back as. And then...
Was How on every ITV region?
Yes.
Was it national? Or
yes, yes, it was. And to this day, which is... And it never worries me, it's just wonderful. People walk up to me in the street and go, How? And they always think they're the first. And if I had a quid for every time that's happened, I'd be as wealthy as you. I could pay that bloody Moscow bill. But I must just tell you my favourite Harry Redknapp story, can I? It's because I was a director at Portsmouth Football Club, sorry about that, for a while when Harry was the manager and Milan Mandaric was our chairman and the club owner. And Milan was a lovely bloke, but if he'd had a couple of glasses of white wine, he could get a little bit awkward. And there was one match we played Stoke, and we hadn't done too well, and Harry took forever to come up to the director's room afterwards. And when he did come up, Harry, they gave him a big glass of red wine. And Harry, if he's had too many glasses of red wine, it's dodgy. So Milan's knocking back the white, Harry's knocking back the red. And Milan and Harry were going to be the star speakers that night at the big supporters club do, which was following after this. Then Milan said, Harry, I think you played the wrong team today. You what, Milan? Harry, I think you played the wrong team. What do you mean, Milan? Well, I think you had the wrong centre forward. Milan, don't you ever tell me about picking the team. Harry, I own the club. Got his glass of white wine. Harry says, don't talk to me about picking the team, Milan. Red wine. All over the wall. It was like the Valentine's Day massacre. Milan said, that's it, I'm selling the club. Walked out. Harry said, that's it, I'm resigning. Walked out. There's just me and Jim Smith left in the room. Then the public relations guy came in and said, where's Milan and Harry? Because we need them for the big speeches for the supporters. I said, they both walked out. He said, right, well, you'll do for Milan. And Jim, you can be Harry. So I thought, bloody hell. So I'm stood in front of all the supporters, hundreds of them. I thought, what shall I do? So I said, Milan's indisposed. He's not too well, and he's had to go home. But I've got my mobile phone here. I'll ring him up and see if we can talk to him. So I rang him. Of course, he went to answer phone. So I said, hello, Milan. All the supporters here want to say, hope you feel better soon. And they all started singing Milan. There's only one Milan. I said, well, Milan, take care. Clicked it off. Said a few words and got off. And then Jim Smith did for Harry, and Jim was a brilliant speaker anyway. Next morning, Milan rings me up because he's heard it on his phone and all the supporters. He said, I've decided I'm going to stay. So he said, Harry will stay, won't he? So I rang up Harry and said, Milan says he's very sorry, will you stay?
So you saved Portsmouth Football Club?
Yeah, and a fat lot of good it did me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fred Dinenage.
Thank you.
Have you enjoyed this?
It's been, honestly, it's been absolutely lovely. I can't thank you enough for coming. It's been the loveliest afternoon. Thank you to Alex and to Richard and to everybody who's come. And that, as the old broadcaster used to say, is how for now.
How.
Thank you.